Welcome, everybody, to Flat Earth Nation. It is a Flat Earth Nation. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. Clickbait title? I don't think so. I think we're going to be able to experience the joy of the Lord in a new and exciting way. We have a picture. The thumbnail is it's just a piece of glass with a light being shined on it. And inside it, you can still see the toroidal sphere. It is in every bit of light. The background on, let's see here. If you, Kenneth Wheeler, Magnetism, Kenneth Wheeler. You see, let's look at some of the pictures from his books. Uncovering the Mystery Secrets of Magnetism, North Pole, Counter Space, Exploring the Nature of Magnetism. Quite the, he is not afraid to get into the drawings and the angles and in-depth explanations. He literally rewrote the book on magnetism, which means, exactly what I didn't want to do. I want to get to my brother Randy, welcome him aboard. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm all ears here.
All right. Well, we'll just keep it rolling then, because I gotta keep it fresh in my mind here. So we have the Kenny and his stuff.
Yeah, there's animated magnetism.
He does. He can make it. He makes it seem real. Oh, I didn't want to save it. Let's just open it up in a new tab. Take a look at it from their point of view. Oh, I thought it'd be bigger. Centripetal, radial, inertia, counterspin. Enough. We'll just roll with it. Hey, there's Kenny. Everybody knows Ken Wheeler, he calls himself the fat tattooed monkey boy. So don't be offended that I call him Fat Kenny. It's just an abbreviation of what he said. Now, the background on the video you're looking at is I sent him a question. He doesn't usually like my questions, but he took it because I said, please answer why this, pi is not 3. He probably knows from Mud Flood Armageddon and stuff that it was a biblical question. He answered it. It has to do with the Fibonacci sequence. It has to do with phi 1.63, I believe it is. And, they're all fractions. And then he started explaining the Fibonacci sequence starts with a 1 and then a 1. So that's what we're going to listen to. Any more background, interrupt anytime you want, Randy, when you have any questions or comments about what he's saying, okay?
Sure, but I probably will, watch till the end before he.
Bare necessities, simple bare necessity. Simple. Ultimately, nature has a conjugate pair, and it's not a pair, and a pair implies one of something and another one of something, kind of like a pair of shoes, a left shoe and a right shoe. But a conjugate pair meaning an inseparable holos. Things that are distinguished and differentiated.
He's talking about the spirit is undistinguishable from Jesus Christ, the incarnate God. They are the same. That's basically, I'm interpreting what he's saying for people.
Out, which are, of course, one thing. Really crude example of that, of course, would be like ice, water, and steam, which of course are all fundamentally one thing. Human beings love to pigeonhole things like, well, that's hard and cold. That's going to call that ice, and that stuff is wet and drippy. And call that water. It's all the same stuff, right? Even a child knows that. Yet we still have these silly terms that are used, of course, for communication, and people get lost in words rather than the essa of what something is. Anyway, there's a conjugate pair from one corner of the universe to the other. And the first two numbers, by the way, of the Fibonacci sequence are 1 and 1. And this doesn't imply, well, there's 1 and there's 1. It's the principle and the attribute. The elimination out of the Judeo-Christian idea of original sin is very simple, monistic monism. What do I mean by monistic monism? Original, and I emphasize original Buddhism. The teachings of Plotinus, Proclus, Dominius, Syrianus, Damasius.
He gets deep real quick, didn't he, Randy?
Yeah, not everyone's probably that educated in what he's touching on, even momentarily or briefly.
No, I didn't it would have been impossible to understand where I couldn't get where I was in the Bible without this knucklehead.
Yeah.
And he's explaining the Trinity.
There's purpose for everything.
Right, exactly.
Even coincidences.
I just can't. I imagine myself like, and I'll say it as humbly as possible, like the Apostle Paul when he read Epiphanes, the Greek poet, and he read, "In him we live and move and have our being." And Paul went, "What? That's my God." And then the next day he preached a sermon on, "I was walking around your city and I saw a statue to the unknown God. I sent him to you." So it works weird. It does. Let's hear that part again because there's a lot to it. The essence.
Anyway, there's a conjugate pair from one corner of the universe to the other. And the first two numbers, by the way, of the Fibonacci sequence are 1 and 1. And this doesn't imply, well, there's 1 and there's 1. It's the principle and the attribute. The elimination out of the Judeo-Christian idea of original sin is very simple, monistic monism. What do I mean by monistic monism? Original, and I emphasize original, Buddhist.
He says Buddhist. I want to emphasize original, and I mean Christian, that it explains that the one whole number plus the other one whole number equals the 2, which no one can ever find the square root of to satisfy anybody else. And from there comes the spiral of life that has become the Mobius strip, swastika-based, analemma-like vortex that your soul is trapped in via battery and magnetism. That's all I'm trying to say. And that's basically what Kenny's saying. So let's pick it back up there.
The teachings of Plotinus, Proclus, Dominius, Syrianus, Damasius, Plato, Pythagoras,
Full.
On and on and on. Yeah. Advaita Vedanta.
Full.
Sandra Sri Sankaracharya, Principle Upanishads.
Never heard of him.
There is no original sin or prima causa, or first cause within those systems. What's the cause for the descent of the...
And that's where we separate. Randy, I believe there was original. I believe I was born in sin because I wouldn't want to have done some of the things I've done. Looking back, I'd be like, I don't even understand why.
Yeah, we are aware of that and have accepted that, what you just identified. And that's why all of creation is moaning.
Right. All of creation knows, we are not the full potential yet. And to say, that's why the Native Americans, they stretch so hard. They don't want to admit we're born in sin. There's just bad spirits, that made people do bad things, but nobody was ever really, really bad. Well, I'm afraid that's the problem. We had to be made good, but that's a different sermon. Let's focus on what Mr. There is no sin because he's
the soul. Well, the extrinsic attribute of the absolute. Nothing can be known. Nothing is or even is not. And by is not, I mean completely unreal. We all have ideas and things in our heads that anybody with a half a brain anyway knows are not real. Unicorns, leprechauns, and well, one of the attributes of a unicorn, it's horse-like, and it has a horn sticking out of its head, right? These would be attributes of a unicorn, something that doesn't even exist at all. Nobody could, and you could say, this kind of be like a bar trick, if you will. Say, I'll give you $1 million if you could think of something, the essence, something that has no attributes. It's completely impossible. The only thing anybody could be said or ideated, it must have usually way more.
I also am praying for Kenny too, because think about everything I teach, he teaches. Which one of us is questioning things holding a rock in his hand right now? That's Kenny. Rocks are where you're going to find the answers, brother. When I can cut them open and tell you what's on the inside, you better think about why.
More than one attribute. It's like, there's a rock. Say it's just made out of gold or something. Well, it's a certain size and shape and weight. No, there's attributes. So nothing is that doesn't have one attribute. And this includes that which is most simple and most divine, the agathon, or the absolute. That which the good is also, too, that which the good does. And by does is really an inappropriate word. It's not doing something. It is the essence of what it is. Yes? This would be the dark principle. By the way, there's two darknesses in genuine metaphysics. There's the darkness that's actually cast by matter. It's like, there's the shadow. There's light coming in here. We got a shadow here. That's one darkness. The other darkness is the principle of what something is, because it cannot be known. This has been written about countless different times by countless different gurus throughout the ages. The unknown God, the dark absolute, the principle of light. Because nobody sees light.
Sure, the dark attribute is the principle of light. I don't even, when you get lost, look at him. He's just going like, the unknown God, this all-powerful force, whatever we're going to call it. Rah, rah, rah.
Psychobabble?
Or something. Whatever it is, there's whatever it is to make that he's not a sinner. Because I basically feel like Kenny's probably a pretty good guy. He's like, he tries hard. One of the things he might have been embarrassed about that he took that video down was he said that something has motivated him. In the past 2 days, he started exercising. And in that video, he said, I did enough exercise yesterday for a year. And that's always crazy to start out overdoing it, because you're just going to get sore and never want to do it again. You got to start out slow. But anyway, you have sinned, Kenny. You don't have to like it.
You do. You can see it right there. Now we're looking at the extrinsic attribute of light, which is illumination. That which goes forth. However, illumination is not an emission, but that's a matter for another video, which I've already made many, many, many times, because light's not an emission. It's a disturbance of the medium, specifically a coaxial disturbance. As Nikola Tesla said, light is nothing other than a sound wave in the ether. Sound is not an emission. Sound is a disturbance in the medium, being oxygen and nitrogen. The light itself, the energy that's released, is a disturbance of the medium, which is a specific coaxial disturbance. I don't know if you know what the cross-section of a coax cable is. Center conductor, dielectric, and then a copper shielding, which contains the rebounding signal measured in frequency and wavelength. But nothing is without at least one attribute. This is the reason why the first few numbers of the Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio, is 1 and 1. Principle and attribute. These are not two things. These are one thing.
I'm going to pause, and I got Mr. Luther is on the phone. Hey, brother Luther, how are you? Let me put you on speaker.
I'm doing good.
Okay, I got you live, brother. What's new?
Oh, just got some mail sent out today. You should get it in about 3 or 4 days.
Oh, brother, I truly appreciate that. And I know God's going to bless you, and it'll be put to absolute good use here. I'm live on the radio right now with Randy. Randy, say hello to Mr. Luther, the truther. You know him as Yaz Will Soaring.
Yeah, good day to you, sir.
Yeah, the Christian music country rock star.
Yeah, I've caught many of his comments, and they're very
good
very
friend.
appealing.
We're just about to listen to Ken Wheeler explain why there's no Trinity from the Fibonacci sequence. So if you want to stick around, you can't. Otherwise, brother, we're going to have to talk later, but you're welcome to stay, or you can even come on the show if you want.
I gotta go. I I got to do some things. So I just want to let you know that was in the mail and should get it, I don't know, depending on how long it takes.
Thank you so much, brother. You know I always appreciate your help.
Yeah, God bless you.
God bless you.
Yeah, later.
Yeah.
Luther the Truther, everybody, all the way from the Midwest where he's still working. And the man is, I think he's 50 years old or something like that. And he's still up on that roof swinging that hammer. You can't do that if you're a wimpy boy. So anyway, back to Kenny, 2 + 2, 1 + 1. I'm going to back it up because really the spirit is the same as the physical essence of 1 + our 1. That's how we have one God. It's the same thing. Now, you can't do that with another. If there's an extra Holy Spirit from eternity going around going like, hey, what about me?
Numbers Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio is 1 and 1, principle and attribute. These are not two things. These are one thing, the same thing of all fields, because so-called gravity, the phenomena, is not autonomous. It is no different than dielectric acceleration or what's conventionally called electrostatic cling. Everybody knows what electrostatic cling is. Gravity is nothing other than a different attributional state of dielectric acceleration. Electricity is a hybrid of dielectricity and magnetism, 5 times psi equals Q blank of electrification. This is the inseparable dyad.
Well, yeah, I have a question here then. So Kenny here is acknowledging some sort of gravity?
Oh, no. He'll fight gravity. Kenny is a big ether lover. He is the last Tesla defender of, for crying out loud, if me and Tesla say there's an ether, there's an ether. That's his position.
Yeah, and the theory of gravity is merely a theory.
Oh, yeah, he knows that very well.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, this man is no fool. He's not arguing with what his senses tell him. And oh yeah, he's the great defender of the ether. He's better explaining it than me.
No, yeah, he's
good. Principle and the attribute, the good and what good does. There's the good, and then there's the good itself in manifestation. There's light and illumination. Well,
you see, he's the guy that actually went over there, learned the language, and studied Buddhist from the Buddhists. But Buddhists are just Christians that got rebranded, I think. So you're a nut, Kenny.
Take dielectricity as light, which nobody sees light. Sure, you see light. You're crazy. What's wrong with you, you fat bald guy? Nobody sees light. It's not my idea or belief or conviction. It's a fact. People only see illumination. Yes, nobody sees light. Light is the principle of that disturbance of that release or energy. Yes. Well, we take dielectric to be the light. Magnetism is unequivocally magnetism, because magnetism is a dielectric field. Illumination is the field of light. The good is manifest, and things that are good or a resemblance of the good is the field of the good. Magnetism is the dielectric field. Specifically, it is the force of motion centrifugal three-dimensional force vector of the loss of energy, i.e. the dielectric.
What about the Mobius strip swastika battery operated vortex, Kenny? That doesn't work for you?
Which of course is centered at the plane of inertia, right? The center of the hyperboloid. You know what an hourglass shape is? It's a hyperboloid. You know the center of an hourglass, there's that little pinch point there. If we could imagine that pinpoint infinitely small to the point of complete invisibility in this physical universe, yes, that would be the ether. That would be the null point with no Cartesian value. The plane of inertia circles it. Explaining the plane of inertia is actually divinely simple, but it's hard to do. It actually sits at the lowest pressure mediation between the centrifugal magnetic and the centrifugal convergent dielectric. It sets at this low pressure nodal point between both fields. It's kind of like two people fighting, like, here's a really crude example, like mom and...
I haven't heard this part yet. I'm very excited to hear what he's got on this.
Mom and dad are bickering, and, the child is the plane of inertia. The child, go hide underneath the bed or the closet, the place where he feels most calm and most safe. So the plane of inertia is the lowest pressure point between the mutually destructive constructive and destructive interference between the
The
magnet.
plane of inertia is the barrier between the destructive
Yeah,
interference of the
That's
magnetic.
kind of a really brief explanation of the plane of
Okay.
inertia.
I got
The
it.
plane of inertia is not a field. It has its own attributes and it sits in a special place. And I can talk about the plane of inertia in another video. But the centrifugal force and motion vector of the toroidal field that we call magnetism is nothing other than a modality of the dielectric who lost that energy of inertia. Just as we say ice. Ice is to water.
See, I have to admit, Randy, I was worried because he deleted the other one that I was going to make a live video. So I didn't even really have time to watch the whole video.
Sure.
All of this other stuff, I just wanted to tell the people, he's preaching about being a Buddhist, and that's just not good enough, according to the Bible. You know, there's something about believing in your heart and confessing with your mouth these, you know, this sentiment, whatever language you speak, Jesus Christ is Lord. You know, that,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know, that's a vibration that everybody needs to, you know, that whatever language you speak, that from your heart, wow, you have the power to forgive sins, and he did it. You know, that's all part of the same thing, you know. Wow. So magnetism and ice, huh?
Magnetism is to the dielectric. This is the conjugate field geometry of the entire universe. Yes, it's no different than speaking of the second one, which is not another one, it's just the attribute of the first one. Attribute of the first one is that second one in the second digit of the Fibonacci sequence, 1 and 1. Dielectric and magnetic. These are not two things, they're one thing. They're a holos, they're principle and attribute. This means that magnetism is the attribute of the dielectric. And this is irreducibly and universally undeniable.
I don't see or hear a trinity in nature. I see God is one. So
yeah, and you're not flying solo with that assessment either.
we're getting that. Deuteronomy.
Of Mother Nature from one corner of this universe to the other, the magnetic and the dielectric. And you find countless examples of this in ancient Egyptian metaphysics. Yes, the principle and the attribute. Yes, find it also too in Plato's cave analogy. Yes, you have two different lights. You have the sunlight outside of the cave. You have a fire behind those people who are holding up sock puppets, which are casting shadows on the wall that the prisoners are, entertained by, and they confuse that inferior light, the inferior light of the fire inside the cave, casting the shadows with the superior light, which is antecedent to the cave itself, is outside up in the sky. So be the solar absolute or the solar agathon. So there is this inseparable conjugate pair.
Sometimes I have no idea what he is talking about. Gee whiz. Tone it down, Kenny.
But they're not a pair like a pair of shoes. Here's a shoe and there's another shoe. No, they are one thing that are only divided by, not divided at all, ultimately, divided in their natures and perceived natures, principle and attribute, an inseparable holos. It's a Greek word meaning union. We get the word holography. You have the reference beam and the reflected beam, which contrive to make the three-dimensional universe that we call the hologram, the holos. But it is, people don't know how holograms are made, but it's fascinating to learn how a true optical hologram is made. But,
I don't know if he's going to stay on topic for these last 4.5 minutes, but I'm interested in holograms. So let's keep rolling, Randy. You got anything?
No, yeah, bring it on.
Magnetism is the dielectric field, quote unquote. It's a quote from Faraday, by the way, Michael Faraday. The second one is just the field of the agathon. Its attributional nature, like light and illumination, the good and the good. ice and water, or water and ice, depending on how you look at it. Yeah. So which one came first? It's like you live on a hot world or a cold world. You live on a cold world, ice would be the first one, and the water would be like if it was heated up. You live on our world, through much of the world anyway. You start with water, and then you go to ice. So ice would be the second one instead of the first one. This is the conjugate pair of the entire universe from one end to the next. If one truly understands this very simplex principle, I said simplex, not simple, then you really can understand the rest of things quite easily. And you can understand none of it without having this primer within your mind with complete clarity. And I don't mean have it within your mind. And I watched the video and I heard what he said. It's like, yeah, but did you understand it? Did you make it yours? You know, listening to something is not having something. You know, I could watch somebody make a fancy puffy cake riddled with strawberries and dripping with chocolate molten glaze on it, but it's not mine. I can't eat what I saw. Not that I want to eat that. Actually, I do. I don't actually like sweets, but I think I would eat something that nice. Actually, I'd like I know what I'd like. Blackberry pie that's like really hot, drizzled with melting vanilla ice cream. I'm going to edit that out of this video.
I would have to go with the peach cobbler and vanilla ice cream.
They're all good choices to the individual.
I mean, I haven't had any in 30 years, but if you're talking about that type of really like decadent food, I've had that peach cobbler to where it's like, man, this is good.
By making it yours, i.e. having the primer of the universe, the conjugate pair, and understanding what they are, everything else really does come quite simply. Because everything is pressure mediation without understanding the conjugate pair. The second one, the Greeks called ananke. They also too called it the euristos dyas, the indefinite dyad. And dyad, people always think means two. It's dyads, two things, like pair of shoes. There's that shoe and there's that shoe. It's like, no, it's not. They're just like that. They're only distinguished in that one's a principle and one's the attribute. And this is what confuses everybody about monistic metaphysics, which basically is all metaphysics. Not all of it, but a lot of it. Platonism, the ancient Egyptian, the principal Upanishads, Pythagoras, Plato, Plotinus, Numenius, Syrianus, Damascus, Proclus, Iamblichus, on and on and on. Without understanding this, you can't understand anything. Like, here's the head side of a coin, and here's the tail side. It's like, no, it's just the silver, the coinage. This is the one, and this is the second one. Yeah, but they're both one silver. This is the magnetic, and this is the dielectric. Should have started with dielectric. Dielectric and magnetic. Yeah, but it's just ultimately just one thing. And herein enters the confusion. Because there are two darknesses in this universe from the perspective of metaphysics. There's the darkness of the one, which is the principle, which cannot be known objectively. Impossible. Yeah, the principle, not the attribute, because nobody sees light. They only see illumination. And the second darkness, which of course is the shadow cast by mass and magnitude, i.e. matter. It's a shadow, it's a darkness. He's like, we're not talking about this darkness, we're talking about the darkness of the one. Not the second one, which is visible, but the darkness of the first one. This is what confuses everybody. But it is really simplex. Not simple, but simplex it is. Lux Everitas.
Look how clean his shop is. Even his camera is sparkly. Man. Ken Wheeler, everybody. Theoria Apophasis. He is a closet teacher of Buddhism. Tries to suck you in with his knowledge of math and philosophy, and then he dresses like Buddha. Here's something about ether. Here's a couple about ether recently.
laser is a point source object. Same thing a magnet actually is, a point source object, or you can say, like I said, a magnet is a field laser. A black hole, of course, is also too a point source field object. However, it's vanished from the visible universe, and its mass is it's a supermass with no magnitude. And it's a counterspatial object generating ultra high energy light, i.e. hydrogen. These are called galactic jets or astrophysical jets. The point I'm getting to on this is the fact that, just think about this for a second. And this is 100% undeniable. Like I said, other than a couple crackpots saying that magnets are bending space and time, which nobody in academia, not that I support academia at all, ever says magnets are bending space-time. Literally ludicrous. They all say that a magnet is emitting virtual photons, which is a completely, not my idea, a hardcore fact, a made-up concept with no validity whatsoever. None, not the input or output of any experiment. They use it to make the equations balance out. When you eliminate out the ether, you have to replace it with something super radical, super foolish, super nonsensical. What do you think is the communication medium? Oh, there's that medium again. There's that word medium. That's just another euphemism for the ether. We can't use the word medium. We have two magnets, and what's going on between them? You know, what's the medium? Oh, we can't say medium. That's just another word for the ether. Well, we know it's not warp space-time. You know, we know it's not virtual photons because Mother Nature is not crazy and insane. She's a hippie chick with hairy pits, muddy feet, and a hemp skirt. I'm wearing a hemp robe right now, so that's kind of fitting, right?
Your Buddha.
Dreadlocks. Don't forget her dreadlocks. So what do you think the communication, because when you eliminate out
I think if Kenny wasn't a Buddhist, if he was evil, he would be the next Dick Cheney. He could pull something off like, I want to steal the moon, or one of those things, you know. He's crazy.
So.
What really happens is that you have to introduce these magic particles that are sending communications. Let's just say that I'm completely lobotomized and unintelligent, an academician, in other words. I've eliminated out the ether, which can't be done. But in my mind, I've eliminated it out. What we have now are these invisible little things called virtual photons. Like little, you remember people that used to knock on your door, like, and sell you garbage you didn't need or wanted you to join some weird group, you know, and they got a little propaganda to hand to you. And what's going on between two magnets, according to the absurdity and foolishness that these people propose, is that, you know, these little door.
All I'm wanting him to do is turn this rock over so I can, you know, that's like that vein, that muscle looks like it were, you know, the fat that goes around along those veins. It's definitely, I want to see the other side of that rock. Can you flip that over for me, brother?
Door salesmen, they're invisible. They've never been seen experimentally.
Oh, yeah.
They're completely ridiculous nonsense like unicorns and leprechauns. They're traveling between these magnets at the speed of light, like instantaneous action at a distance, which if you introduce particles and you have instantaneous action at a distance, you end up breaking their so-called speed of light. Nothing goes faster than the speed of light, but they know for a fact that instantaneous action at a distance, or IAD, is real. You have these invisible little door-to-door salesmen, you know, just trillions and trillions and trillions of them, go traveling back and forth between the magnets and knocking on each other's doors saying, hey, there's another magnet nearby. You need to either accelerate towards it or you need to be repelled by it. It's just the level of absurdity. When you replace the ether, which is impossible, but in their minds, they go, oh yeah, we had to replace it with something. Because everybody, even a child, if you tell a child, you know, it just doesn't communicate. You know,
Freddie.
Virtual photons are traveling between these magnets, whether they're accelerating. It's like, that's just ridiculous. I don't see anything. Well, you can't see them. Oh, like some sort of advanced scientific experimental equipment. This is the child. Some sort of advanced, super expensive, super califragilistic scientific equipment has witnessed it somehow, or no. It should never have been the input or output of any experiment. They're completely theoretical nonsense that we came up with. It explains what's going on since we don't believe in either.
reminding me more of Marco Rodin, you know, because Marco Rodin, he learned all of that vortex math, and then all of a sudden he's like, I'm a Baha'i faith believer, you know. I don't know what's going on with these guys. Always just don't want to believe in that they're sinners, or you know, like, I'm not a sinner. That's important to them.
And it is 100% in line with everything I've ever said about magnetism and the coaxium. And I'm the first person to accurately tell you what light is. It's a coaxial circuit. It's not merely transverse electrical magnetic. It has a longitudinal dielectric. And Mother Nature, she's a really, really simple gal. Okay, she's not an insane hooker on crack, as quantum mechanics would have you believe. She only understands two core principles: force and motion, and inertia and acceleration. The entire universe is resistance, capacitance, permeability, magnetism, permittivity, dielectricity. Okay, well, what about that? It means the explanation for this is 100% correct based upon everything that I know about magnetism, which is complete, and everything that I know about light, which is also complete. There's no such thing as the speed of light. It is a rate of induction, the maximum rate of transverse field phenomena through a medium. That medium, of course, being the ether. There's no such thing as warped space-time. Einstein was incorrect on this. There is no premise to back this up. It's dielectric acceleration. That which we call gravity is dielectric acceleration. The same thing that you saw. See, science, by the way, has no idea. There's a famous quote from Tesla, and it goes, if you want to understand the universe, you need to think in terms of frequency and wavelength. And, of course, correct on that. People quote Tesla.
Man, I'm going to wait a couple of seconds. I think Alex just got home or something, and the dogs are all going nuts. Yep. Even the Chihuahua is going to go out and see what's going on. And you got to focus on what this guy's saying. You know, his studio has really grown, hasn't it?
Yeah, it looks busy. I'm not sure exactly what he utilizes in there, but yeah, something appears to be happening.
He's a photographer. He does all his own photography, the high speed photography for the toroids and stuff. And he does a lot of filming, and he reviews cameras. Whatever. He got off on a hobby of like cameras 3 years ago. This is 6 years old, so he's been I guess dealing with cameras a long time.
Sure.
This is more of a Buddhist pitch. Keep it in focus where he's come from, where he's going, how much he's grown in these last 6 years. And I don't mean his waist size, because he looks like he's managed to say the same amount of fatness. Buddha.
Well, on that all the time, but they have no idea what the hell Tesla is saying. He's not simply saying frequency and wavelength. What he's talking about is capacitance. He's talking about the nature of that. You actually change in a given a inertia or field perturbation. When you change the wavelength, when you change the frequency, you change the capacitance, you change the power. What happens when you think you go towards the red end of the spectrum out in the sun? Well, you're going to get a sunburn, not too bad. You start heading towards the blue end of the spectrum, whereas where all the dangerous crap is, X-rays, everything else, that's when it'll kill you in a heartbeat. There is more capacitance per dielectric pulse in the longitudinal coaxial nature of light than there is toward the red end of the spectrum, okay? I'll sit here all day long with a blue end spectrum LED. Won't turn. Red, I'll sit here until I drop dead. It's not going to turn. I bring up the higher capacitance, the threshold. Each one of these little veins has a certain mass. I mean, this is not some serious output out of this little tiny LED. It's not much. But the veins will start to turn, only with the higher capacitance light. Now, this is a fact. You don't believe me? These are all still the current theories on how this simple device works. This device is more simple than a saltine cracker. It is perched on a needle that works as basically a low friction bearing to allow these little veins to spin with applied light. Now, building something and reproducing something, easy. Any chimp can do it. explaining something is where wisdom and true intellect comes into play. See, anybody can observe phenomena, like the idiot Einstein. He won a Nobel Prize for the photoelectric effect. By the way, this device, I'm going to tell you how it works in a second, works the exact same way the photoelectric effect works, as incorrectly explained by Einstein. Well, Einstein won a Nobel Prize. Yeah, you know what that means? That means one idiot, moron, tried to explain something, and that explanation was accepted by a lot of other people who patted him on the back and gave him a Nobel Prize for something that he didn't deserve. Correct observations, which are reproducible, does not have any bearing on the explanation for that phenomenon. This is a huge error in science. Huge error in science. Academic hubris is so. Where's your PhD at? Your PhD. You're saying you know more than people have. You know what a PhD in peer reviewed means? PhD in peer reviewed means that you kiss a bunch of assholes of people above you. You agree with their crap, and all those people did was agree with crap before them. It is a giant circle jerk of stupidity, ignorance, and hubris. Hubris. Hubris.
Right.
Academic hubris is the gigantic, disgusting cancer.
It's kind of like, I never even got an associate's degree because it's like, I don't need somebody to tell me, oh, now it's okay. You're smart now. It just seems so fake because some of those people that come out of there, I know they cheated. I know they did. All those people in fraternities cheat, Randy.
That sits inside the brains and the eyeballs of modern science. All these people do is parrot one idiot before them. And no invention, no creativity, nothing is discovered new unless you start to think outside of the box and you stop kissing the ass of the people before you that didn't know anything and people before them. The way this device works is the same way the photoelectric effect works. It was discovered that there's a certain threshold frequency of light that caused the buildup between the cathode and the anode of electrostatic buildup. Okay? Now, Einstein's
explanation. I'm just going to give everybody a heads up and back up about 10 seconds because he's not saying piezoelectric field, photoelectric field. And so don't apply anything about, there's energy in crystals because of the, let's say nephorensics, or it was alive. There's a crystal. If you squeeze it, it's going to produce energy. He's talking about photoelectricity and light. I'd have nothing on that. I got Zippo, nothing. So there, I just saved everybody because I had to catch this way after I heard it the first time.
But it's real.
Photo, I guess. Photo, yeah. Because it's definitely that light is spinning that weather vane. And this isn't, this is a child's toy gimmick that was invented in 1888, your favorite year, that nobody knows how it works, but everybody bought it and said, this is so cool. They're still, it's the way those little hula girls work in the window too,
Your vehicle's at the shop to pick you up.
It caused the buildup between the cathode and the anode of electrostatic buildup. Okay? Now, Einstein's explanation for that, as I understand what light is, Mother Nature's a really simple gal. She only works in force and motion, inertia and acceleration, resistance, capacitance, permeability, and permittivity.
Then I'm here.
It's force and motion, inertia and acceleration. The way this works, and the reason why the higher capacitance light towards the blue end of the spectrum, the blue towards the purple here.
Yeah, I know yesterday.
This is a low emission LED here. Why it only begins to spin up with and never with the red or the green or even the blue because it's output.
Right.
Is because what is actually going on is that there is an electrostatic buildup and a discharge against the medium. It is no different than a magnetic repulsion. It is a force repulsion against inertia. The reason that black vein, obviously the white light is reflecting. Doesn't matter what frequency the light is, obviously. The white light works the same thing with the flashlight. You bring it towards the white end of the vein, it'll stop. You point it towards the black end of the vein, it'll start to speed up. Okay, well, that's perfectly understood. Obviously, that's been understood now for well over 100 years regarding this simple device. The white light is obviously reflecting most of the light, so it starts to halt. You bring it towards the black end of the vein, it will start to speed up. Speed up there, point it towards the white, it'll halt. It's like applying the brakes on a car. So that's obviously understood. Reflectance. That's capacitance. The black painted vein, it's just metal little veins, has higher capacitance. And when that capacitance threshold is breached, what happens is it sets up a forced discharge, like causing basically an electrical explosion. In some people's minds, they're unable to think in simple terms. I'm going to make a simple analogy. What you're doing is you're creating a forced discharge, a miniature electrical explosion, if you will, obviously incredibly small, a discharge of that black vein against the point of inertia. It's no different than what you would ignorantly call magnetic repulsion. So yes, this little simplex device has been around now for ages. I was about to say eons. I mean, this device has really been around for a long time. You know, nobody's ever done this experiment with the Crookes radiometer. Why? Because nobody understands light.
No, we were stuck. We were absolutely stuck. And until 6 years ago, we were just stuck.
Well, this is similar, you know, the median, you know, I'm sure you've seen that star in a jar. It's just a sound frequency that produces
Spark?
the light. Yeah.
Yeah. That was cool.
Yeah, and that's what I say. See what I pulled out this one when he got his toy out. Look what I had right within an arm's length of, you know, my computer here. You know,
The Crookes micrometer.
yeah, it's the same toy.
Yeah, he has a Crookes micrometer sitting right there. Everybody had one back in the day. Was that your mom's or?
I have no idea. It's been here forever. It might have been in the building when I bought the building.
Yeah.
You know, this might have been Cliff's. Who knows?
Exactly. That's a Crookes micrometer, and it's almost probably exactly like the one Kenny is holding up.
Yeah, it's as common as a paper clip.
I think at the end of this video, if my memory serves me correct, and it might have diminished some, but it usually goes pretty good. And I think he holds up a list of, because as his final selling point of, there's 2 pages of different theories on how the Crookes mechanism works. There's that many different theories out there. Oh, this is how it works. But one thing I want to do is I want to remind people that water, the ether, water divided by water. Oh, I'm moving my hands. Why did my camera stop working? That's 2 nights in a row. And I wanted to see the people. Oh, there it is. Well, at least it's that one camera. This is my internal camera. So you don't get to see. I'm not on a sound stage. But water is so explosive. If you separate oxygen and hydrogen, and it's an explosion. Hydrogen is part of what they call water, H2O. That's hydrogen. And there's either one thing, when he's talking about there's ice, there's steam, water. There's either, there's another stage too. There's water, or it is freaking exploding, because when hydrogen and oxygen extract, is a violent explosion.
With memory?
At least there used to be. I mean, I could be making that up. How do you spell hydrogen anyway? I know, I'm just kidding. Well, I'm going to look that up for a second here. Wait, I already did.
Are you sharing?
Nope. I wanted to, in case, it didn't show me anything cool, I didn't want to act like I was bound to it. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank the people who made this video. It's not copyright. I'm not trying to make any money. I'm just trying to, I'm just kind of thinking, like, are they just helping me by calling it BS for me? Because I was about to call BS, but in case I would have forgotten, the Lord wanted to make sure that I'm calling BS unless people realize that this water and hydrogen separation, there's a fire of purification coming, everybody.
Looks like it's pre-labeled.
I love hydrogen. It's one of my favorite elements, and one of my favorite demonstrations is just to fill a balloon with hydrogen and hit it with a little bit of flame. So I tie a candle to the end of a meter stick, and I'll light up the candle, get it close, stand about a meter back, and watch hydrogen go. My favorite reaction. Now I thought that maybe if I put a
Man, he looked like Jim Carrey when he was doing the.
So if you have a big enough balloon, it would look like the Hindenburg.
Oh, baby.
Maybe.
The thing is, the Hindenburg, when it started from one end, a lot burned out one side. If it would have gone boom all at one time, if it would have had a tighter container instead of the canvas and stuff, it maybe really would have went.
But there were some survivors. I mean, because I just read that thing this morning, and that's what it reminded me of.
the Pringles can, why couldn't I do this with a plastic bottle as well? So I took a nail and I got that nail heated up. And the reason I'm heating it up is so that I can easily get a hole inside a bottle. Now I'm trying to do the same thing that I've got with the Pringles can. So putting a hole in the bottom, which is now going to become the top, so that the gas can escape out of that. Then all we need to do is fill it up with hydrogen and let it rip. Like to put a stopper in the bottom, but I use a stopper that has a hole in it so that that oxygen from the outside can be pulled up into the bottle, and that way I get the nice pop when the mixture of hydrogen and oxygen is just right inside the plastic bottle. Turn this thing into a rocket. So again, I'm evacuating all the other air out of there. I just want it filled up with hydrogen so it doesn't blow up in my hand. Put the stopper on the top to hold the gas in.
You gotta be careful with that stuff, man.
Yeah, probably.
You'd want to. There's heavy water.
It's tainted with what, lead or some sort of mineral?
Oh no, it's natural.
Okay.
Heavy water. Heavy water is also known as deuterium oxide. It is used in chemistry as a source of deuterium, as a solvent in NMR spectroscopy, and as a coolant in special nuclear reactors. In standard conditions, it has its boiling point at 101.4 degrees C and freezes at 3.8 degrees C. Heavy water has a slightly higher density than ordinary water. That's why ice cubes out of heavy water sink in ordinary water. An interesting effect is that trapped gas bubbles cause the ice cube to float after.
You think that's cool?
And you just pump this right out of the ground?
No, you just find it in the water.
Oh.
But come on, man. I'm so happy. What did I play? Wow, Barbara Walters. This is so fun. I finally found something that you didn't know. Where is that one about the? Not the Wikipedia article. Well, we know that. Let's see.
So you need to manipulate regular water to change it to heavy water.
Okay, so we're going to do an experiment today that Martin Polymath has been on at us to do for a while. So we're finally going to get around to doing it. He's very excited.
Between these different forms, which are called isotopes, is by far the biggest for hydrogen.
So it's heavy water. So water is H2O, as I'm sure everyone knows, and deuterium oxide is D2O.
So hydrogen normally has one proton, but a second form of hydrogen called deuterium has a neutron as well.
So it's natural occurring.
The neutron, the same mass as the proton, but is electrically neutral. It doesn't have a positive or a negative charge.
As a matter of fact, it's 1 out of 6,000 molecules of water is what we call D2O. I wonder if we got anything on D2O. Oh. Is it good? So, okay. So this would be interesting. I've always found it fascinating. Here you go. See, deuterium. It's a form of water that contains only deuterium, heavy hydrogen, and heavier than regular water, rather than the hydrogen 1 isotope. The presence of the heavier hydrogen isotope gives the water different nuclear or just a different atomic property. Let's use, if we have to use a word, we'll go with that because they have that whole. I'm drawing a blank. I look at the thing we thought lists all the elements. Oh my goodness, how embarrassing. The increase of mass gives it slightly different physical and chemical properties. Well, it's a real thing. So, but you have to dig so hard to make, to find out it occurs naturally and it's 1 out of every 6,000 regular waters or whatever it is. Is it this many of the regular hydrogen atoms are the heavy type? Compared to, I thought it was more. A molecule of heavy water has 2 deuterium atoms in place of the 2 proterium atoms of your ordinary regular water. I think that maybe the heavy water makes up the outside skin of a raindrop, maybe, I don't know. The term heavy water is defined by the IUPAC Gold Book, can also refer to water in which a higher than usual proportion of hydrogen atoms are deuterium rather than proterium. And they might do that. I think they try to make their own heavy water in their so-called advanced steam generators that they call nuclear power plants. 156 deuterium atoms per million. So it's much less than I thought. I thought it was 1 in 6,000. I know I heard something like that.
But it's just as healthy to drink as any other type of water.
You wouldn't even notice it. It's only, look, you see, it's like 0.25 of 1% of regular water. It just would be nothing to you. It'd just be water,
Yep.
Heavy water is not radioactive. It's just a part of water. It's that mysterious 0.25% that, when you look at water, you start thinking there's a lot of mysteries. And I know Luther, those guys, they love easy water and some of the aspects that that means a rock would never wear out, and how it works in the vortex. But I forget, I would be talking about this all the time because every time I look at it, I'm like, wow, darn, that's cool, because I don't understand it. And plus, you talk about, I wonder what it would explode like. It's, if you had two, if you could, well, you would be looking at from a deuterium form of hydrogen from your regular H2O. We were watching some pretty big explosions from regular hydrogen. I'm not trying to scare people. This isn't whoa, don't worry about the lake of fire. You got to get through the purifying fire first. It isn't going to be hot. I think everybody knows intuitively it's going to be hot. Nobody wants the hot place, I don't. This guy's weird, right, with the hair?
Yes, he's for real, eh?
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness. Oh, yeah, he's one of the smartest people in the world. He's even older and weirder now.
And who's his hairdresser?
Don King and Larry from the Three Stooges. I mean, who else could it be? I mean,
A pressurized heavy water reactor is a nuclear power reactor, commonly using unenriched natural uranium as its fuel, that uses heavy water as its coolant and
okay,
moderator.
so they did enrich it. By that, they mean they just segregate the heavy water molecules.
The heavy water coolant is kept under pressure, allowing it to be heated to higher temperatures without boiling, much as in a pressurized water reactor.
That's very counterintuitive. You can heat it up hotter than regular boiling by separating it. There's a lot of weird stuff out there, man.
While heavy water is significantly more expensive than ordinary light water, it creates greatly enhanced neutron economy, allowing the reactor to operate without fuel enrichment facilities and enhancing the ability of the reactor to make use of alternate fuel cycles.
Hey, Randy, I'm just gonna go over what I had here. We're sharing, so I had that heavy oxygen water. So look at some of these other ones. Look at this. There's an H217O. There's other mystery things in water. I mean, I don't have time to blow everybody's mind. I still got some daylight around here I got to get done before we get into, I'm looking at things like this. Bala Hissar Fort, but I didn't just get there from there. I was looking at that whole Afghanistan area and the Khyber Pass, still, as of the 1950s, the only way to get to China from Russia is through Afghanistan. This area of the world that we're looking at, that's where these universities are, in that area of Afghanistan. Yeah, we're looking at, since 1973, when the countries had the crap, first by the Russians, then by us, never-ending war. They still have these universities working. They're up and running over there, Randy, in that area of Afghanistan. So I'm going to be looking at that kind of stuff tonight.
Yeah, nice architecture. Yeah.
A hard look at this star fort, that's for sure, right? Beautiful area. Now, this is a man-made reservoir, store fresh water, and from it they can pump water downstream during the night, or use it during the day to generate electricity, pump it upstream at night when there's practically no cost, and use it again. They make electricity and drink it, and they live like that. Anyway, so we'll be looking at that. It's this area of the world, Khyber, by the Khyber Pass. A lot of people think that's where the tribe of Dan disappeared into when they couldn't take it over. Here's a little bit of their capitals of the Durrani Empire. We're going to be looking hard tonight at the Durrani. What do you call what I do, looking at things hard? We'll be doing that again tonight because of the whole Central Asia, Middle East thing, trying to figure out their pendants You know what another name for a pendant is?
Triangle?
Chevron. Well, okay, yeah, triangle too. But I was trying to think of like I should have said in their world, it's called a chevron.
All right.
Here's these guys from Afghanistan. Remember those universities? They've been up and running for a long time, brother.
And what do they teach?
Just haikus.
Yes.
They teach how to write haikus. They love haikus. I don't know. I stared at this picture. It's weird, right?
So that's a drawing?
Of a war they had. Yeah, these are cannons fighting each other so close. That's some real trench warfare. Look at this mortar. And look at this fascia. It's shooting out something. I wish I could make it bigger. Maybe I'll save it. I probably saved it already. We'll see. What's that?
A little fence?
These are cannons. That's a mortar. Here comes the cavalry. They got their crossbows.
Maybe.
These horses, he's got a big horse, Randy.
Yeah.
He's the
But he
king.
needs a big horse because he's bigger than the other people.
He gets to be in color. There was a time when it was hard to make colors, dyes. You know, there's been, hey, look, there's an elephant. 2 elephants. 3.
Where's Waldo? There's another elephant. Yeah.
Now look at the way these people are lined up. Right here. This is the army that wants to fight them. They got elephant to guard them in the middle there. So this is India. This is that Khyber Pass.
Yeah. If they get any more compass, they'll be shooting at themselves.
The doggone thing is that, you know, you don't want to get trapped in the city. You want to be doing what they call insurgency. But with your insurgency is to not get found, not stay in my village and be like, oh, I hope they don't kill us this time.
Yeah. Maybe they won't find me.
I wonder if there's anybody going, you know, uh-oh. I don't know. I don't want to look into their window, but that looks like it might be getting a, hey, wait a minute. Somebody didn't have enough color to color this guy.
Yeah, he's big enough.
Here's a couple more of the big boys.
Yeah.
These guys are too grouped up. You got to spread out. Here's some dismounted big boys, I think. They're going to be like cannon fodder. What enough of that. We're going to be, I got this.
So was there a date on that picture? Or
1836.
okay.
This is in Afghanistan and wherever I got this book from. So this guy, we're going to take a hard look at this guy. I think he's probably just making up this crap back in the day. He wrote this in 59. But anyway, it's not as cool as I thought it was. It's kind of dry. I didn't give it much of a chance. I was kind of tired. So then I remembered after listening and deciding I'd do this about Fat Kenny, I had a half hour. So I typed in Morris Refinery Quantum Project. because I was raised right outside Chicago in Morrison. They opened up in 1975. My dad was there working on and it just seems like all of the refineries, I'm going to be able to trace them back to the early 60s where they doubled the size, but no new refineries have been built since then. And just the fact that it was called Quantum was a big deal to me. So I looked up Morris, Illinois. This is where I went to 6th grade. Then my dad said, nope, even this town's too big. So we moved to the country.
So when you say they doubled the output potential or capacity without building new ones?
I don't remember. What did they double? What was I talking about?
These refineries that.
Oh yeah, they didn't make any, even down in Texas, they didn't make new refineries. They only doubled the size of existing ones. Pre-reset in my world, recent reset. So I'm gonna be looking for those kind of connections. And then it was right there in Morris. So a lot of weird stuff was happening there. We'll take a look at that. So this, and just the fact that, in 1974, I haven't had a chance to look at this, but this was where they said, what can you burn in the atmosphere, even if it's effluent, like flammable, methane, fart, think, effluent. So they set the rules for that because I remember when that thing went online, they said they spoiled the first batch and they had to burn it off. And that thing lit up the sky for 3 weeks. It was so bright as they burned it out of that smokestack. And
how do you mean they spoiled the first batch?
Just they told us whatever they were producing there, refinery wise, they say whatever they had to burn off of something, they had permission, they could burn it into the atmosphere.
Okay.
But it provided 800 jobs in the area, and it took a bunch of union dudes to build it. And then afterwards they could run it for the lesser non-union people. So once they got it going, and it's always had something burning. It's still burning when if I go to visit my family there today. It's right there, burning. And my mom used to deliver the meals because they catered through the Holiday Inn, and she ran the restaurant there. Small world, huh?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Did Quantum even back in 75, but in 75, the only thing I was worried about, everybody thought, because my parents spent a fortune for me to be a basketball player, but I quit my sophomore year and joined the wrestling team. And I became the captain of the wrestling team because my mom sent me to another very expensive, Dan Gable camp so I improved really fast, and everybody thought it was just because I was so talented and good. But once I realized I was committed to the wrestling team, and I looked around at the other guys that were like 155, 165 pounds like me, and I'm there like, dang, if I don't get smart, they're going to kick my ass in front of the whole world. And so I practiced my ass off hard, man, because I was more afraid of getting embarrassed than I was of I don't know.
Yeah, and also at that time politically, Carter was in. It was the first embargo. That kind of nonsense was.
All right. When I got my driver's license the year before my sophomore year, gas went from 75 cents to $1.50, and I was pissed. I was draining the hose into my dirt bikes trying to get every ounce. I was thinking, this is unfair, why?
Yeah.
Anyway, brother, I'm gonna let this go, but I'd like you to stick around for a few. I'm just gonna end the show with a quick prayer.
Okay.
So, dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much that this timing worked out well. I got a break from around here, some of the things we're doing. And I pray that the information from Kenny will be well received and applied in ways that I can't even imagine yet. I think that, thank you, Father, that Randy was able to join. And we pray that this will be blessed now and later. And I thank you, Heavenly Father, for those who are agreeing with this prayer. Thank you and bless us remainder of this day. In Jesus' name, amen. And everybody, remember, it is a flat earth nation. We're never going to tell you anything else. Why would we? We're trying to prove we have your best interest at heart. Amen. Hallelujah.